What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 1025 of FloWrestling Radio Live. I'm your host, Christian Piles. Joined today, got a pair of fine young men here in the studio. To my right, James Dean Rader. He's here. He's got his best clogs, his podcasting clogs on. To the left, fellow stage dad to the stars, David Bray. We just were witnesses of a thrilling rendition of various skits at our church that your daughter and my daughter participated in.
I'm going to model my stage dadness after Billy Ray Cyrus.
Okay.
Yep.
It's going to end well.
Yep.
So that's good. Hey, so, man, we have a ton to get into. Shane Sparks is going to be on in a half hour. Can't wait to catch up with him. You guys have been asking, where's Shane been? And, you know, the timing, he comes on once Ben's out. Is there tension there? We're going to get to the bottom of everything.
Podcast only big enough for one Wisconsin man.
That's right. That's right. But first, the news of the week of the day is the changes or the latest in the Oklahoma State coaching position and that job and all the ups and downs. And Thursday, if you listen to Thursday's show, I alluded to as much as I could allude to. And so now I'm going to try to get you guys totally caught up to speed with what's going on at Oklahoma State. And I'll start at the beginning. After Coach Smith's retirement was announced, there was a series of interviews. There was 4 candidates that were interviewed, and I believe that Penn State arrived at a conclusion that it should be one person, and that person did not accept the position. The Olympic trials then happened. And then I think there was still maybe an attempt made for one of those hires, and that did not go through. And a period of time passes, and David Taylor has an interest in the Oklahoma State job, and he makes that known to the powers that be on the search committee at Oklahoma State, etc. And at that point, which was a week and a half ago now, it was like around Friday, the Friday of the U.S. Open. The conversations began with David Taylor and Oklahoma State. And you saw there were a period of conversations initially, and then as I tweeted late last week, Oklahoma State went to State College, met with David Taylor, and I believe they ultimately have offered him the position. And I think so what happened was this. They met on Friday, and then all of a sudden, all the sides go completely quiet, and you don't hear anything for quite a while from either direction. And I think the way it left and why it was a little quieter over the weekend, I think probably after the Friday meeting, Oklahoma State had some homework to do in terms of, hey, it felt like David probably had some hey, here's what I think we need in order to compete. Here's what would make the job, what one I would consider and I would take. And then during that period of time, while Oklahoma State's doing that, I think David Taylor did some soul searching and had conversations within his circle. And I think they took a day or so, and I believe that David Taylor has ultimately passed on Oklahoma State and declined the job. Reasons, you can assume the reasons. One is he not done competing, because if he were to go to Oklahoma State as the head coach, you have to assume he is, officially done with his competitive career. Is he not ready to do that? Is he not ready to make that decision that I'm done yet? Because, man, 2 weeks ago he thought he was to be wrestling in the Olympic Games, and then he loses to Aaron, and then all of a sudden your future's in flux. And on the one hand, and why I think this is interesting, and I think the job makes a lot of sense for David, is this is a guy who has always talked about wanting to be in college coaching, right? And I've been back and forth, and I've always felt once David entered the conversation, it would not be if Oklahoma State would select him. I thought that was obvious. I thought the big challenge would be, would David ultimately take that plunge and have a total shift in his professional career? And the one thing, there were a lot of reasons for him to say no, right? He's got a lot going on. He's been at State College since 2009. He's built a life, family, businesses, the club in State College, right? So there's a lot of reasons for him to not take a position like this. But the one thing that kept me thinking, well, maybe he will do this. Maybe he'll like take the leap. Is can you imagine a scenario 50 years from now where we look back and say David Taylor was never a college coach? Like, I don't think that is possible. I don't see David staying out of college coaching for his career. It just seems like it's something he's always talked about. I think privately and publicly, he's had an interest in coaching collegiately. And I think him throwing his hat in the ring, this was not Oklahoma State reaching out to him. This was him saying, hey, I am interested in this position. And then Oklahoma State probably was like, well, we did not realize that that would be the case, and probably why they didn't reach out initially, because initially he was getting ready for the Olympic trial. So the timing here made this a little weird. So he has this interest, and if you're interested in college coaching, there's only a few places that make a lot of sense for someone of David's caliber, right? You've got Penn State. Cale Sanderson's 44 years old, and they're coaching the greatest college dynasty in collegiate sports right now. Doesn't look like he's going to leave anytime soon. Oklahoma State is open. It's open now. And there's Iowa. Iowa's not open. I don't think Iowa's going to be open for a while. Coach Brands is still, young in his coaching career, and I don't believe there's going to be any changes going on there. So with that, I think that's why Oklahoma State makes a lot of sense, right? It's one of the few jobs, and we had a question like, what are the top tier jobs? I think the top 3 tier jobs are Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State. Those are the big 3. And David has an opportunity to have one of those big 3 right now. But I believe he is passing. I believe he has declined. And I believe the next head coach is going to be Coleman Scott, who I initially thought was going to be the coach. And I think there's been twists and turns that a lot of people, didn't know what was going to happen. And I'm sure it's been a pretty stressful time for that coaching staff, as they've been kind of in flux as the administration has been, weighing different options and talking to different candidates. But I do think my prediction, I'm not reporting anything. My prediction is that Coleman is going to be the next head coach at Oklahoma State ultimately. So
why do you think that?
Because I think he was in the driver's seat for a while. They took some big swings and made some phone calls and tried to get, other candidates. And once the dust settles, maybe I'll, I cannot say on the show everything I know, but I'll tell you everything I can all the time. That's all I can promise. And I think, and I'll get into the who, on a future show after I think Coleman is ultimately named, because I just don't want to be disruptive to the programs where these other candidates are. But Coleman has, since the David stuff started getting out there in the ether, because no one knew about the other candidate that they went hard after, right? That never got out. But David did. And the groundswell of support around Stillwater, around Coleman, you saw Christian Carroll tweet, I think that's a real thing. And I've been talking to people at Oklahoma State, not administratively, but just people that are around the program. They're like, they love Coleman. People, the boosters love Coleman, the team, etc. They think, they love he's an alum. He's an Olympic bronze medalist. He's an NCAA champion. They really liked him this year at Oklahoma State, and I think a lot of people around that program really want to see it. And it's one thing we've said for years as we've talked about this job, and when it ultimately got open, would they be able to go away from the Cowboy family? And he's there. He's a Cowboy, and I think that was always going to be a tough barrier for Oklahoma State to get past. And it took a David Taylor-like candidate for them to say, okay, we'll look outside the family, because I think they, I think there's a lot of reasons that David Taylor is a great candidate for this job. And ultimately, I think going with Coleman, I see why Oklahoma State's going to ultimately do that. So it sounds like it's always been Coleman, and then they took a big swing, missed, and then one last big swing. I think this is going to miss, and it's going to be Coleman. So
You know how mad you're making people, including Ben
Who's mad?
Askren?
Who's mad?
I bet a lot of listeners are. The fact that you're just saying, some big swing from Penn State.
Well,
What Oklahoma State?
No, I'm saying you're talking about the big swing that they made initially.
Oh, well, I haven't talked about that.
Well, you did.
Oh, well, yeah, Casey. Okay, I guess I'll say, if I accidentally said it, I said I'm not good at being evasive. That's why I try to just say as much as I possibly can all the time. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Casey's not gonna go there, and that just shows just what that's a tough position for him to leave, right? You're coaching with basically your best friends. You got this thing going. I don't think money is a huge concern for those guys. I think they're well taken care of there, and yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for Casey to stay, and it makes me think. That's one thing over the years with Ben. Like, is anyone ever gonna kind of leave and start their own thing? And I think of the big three, which it's Kale, it's Casey, and Cody. I think Casey not pursuing it is. I think those three are going to be together until they're probably all done.
Till death do us part.
Till death do us part. till retirement do us part. And that's my read on the situation.
well, the chat's going wild over here.
They're going crazy. Let's
Yeah.
get wild.
Yeah, let's get wild. First of all, very early in the show, Wrestle Guru confirmed David Taylor to Oklahoma State. So we gotta come square with
Okay.
two dissenting opinions.
Well, we got two gurus.
we got two gurus in the mix.
Bring up.
But maybe a little more to the point. One of the questions in here is why is David Taylor qualified for a job like this, and is he?
Wrestling is weird in that, it's not that strongly, it's not correlated at all in any other sport where being an all-timer correlates at all to coaching. But for whatever reason in wrestling, it does.
It's got to partially be due to the individual. It's the fact that it's an individual sport.
I agree with that. I think that
Heavily technique-based
technique
success.
Yes. And, to reach that level generally requires an insane amount of work and thought. And so I think here the case for David Taylor is, one, the same reason David Taylor wanted to wrestle for Cale Sanderson is the same reason many wrestlers would want to wrestle for David Taylor. He is that guy of this generation. He and Jordan Burroughs, who I don't believe is interested. He has been consistently dismissive of coaching in college at any point. I don't think he wants to. I think David does eventually want to. But David is that guy that the high school kids want to wrestle like, and he has shown an ability to develop through the club system. He's entrepreneurial, which I think is one of the most underrated aspects of becoming a Division I head coach. You're right, he doesn't have experience. That is true. And that's where, if he were to take it, his staff would be essential. You've got to put people around you that are going to compensate for your strengths and weaknesses. And I feel like if that was a concern that Oklahoma State had, then David would have to say, well, I understand I'm inexperienced in these areas, and here's how I'm going to compensate for that with the people I hire. And I get why people think, hey, this guy is not qualified or whatever. I don't agree with it, but I can see why you would draw that conclusion. But
It would be pretty unprecedented.
Yeah, it's everyone's been in starts as an assistant. I mean, I don't know what Gable.
Well, I think he was 1 year as an assistant.
1 year is. I mean, are you really learning the ins and outs? I mean,
Kale was what, 2 years?
2 or 3? 3.
3.
He was
Okay.
under Bobby for 1 or 2, and then head coach at Iowa State
Yeah.
for 3, I think.
Yeah. So I get it, but here's the thing. Ultimately, whenever David does enter into college coaching, do any of us sitting here think he's not going to be a great college coach? I feel like if that's what he commits himself to do, I think it's going to work out. He's going to be able to recruit and develop well. And I think people are trying to get a piece of Penn State in any way they can too. You've got to, if your program wants to win, I think people feel like you've got to have some piece, some aspect of that. And I think that's part of it too. He's been there. I mean, Cale made this thing happen at Penn State, but David has been there since day one and was the face of the program. He kind of went through every level of wrestling success you can have. He was the best wrestler in college for 2 years. He was the face of that program, and then he made teams, and he won worlds, and he won the Olympics. Now he's coaching. Like, he's kind of had this. He's been there. He's been a huge part of Penn State. And if you say Cale's the number one reason for Penn State's success, I don't think you get too far down the list before you say the name David Taylor. And I think that's sort of known in and around the sport. I think he's just a big part of it. And I think that's what, I mean, that's not really my, my perspective. I think that's a perspective that's widely held within wrestling. And I think that's why you saw Oklahoma State get so aggressive in trying to land him.
Now, to that point, Tanner Huffman in the chat says that the fact that David Taylor is getting his name out now, even if he doesn't take the job, is huge because, and he doesn't say it exactly like this, but it's like now any big time job that's open, you got to imagine David Taylor is going to be one of the first calls.
Maybe, but if you'll turn down Oklahoma State, maybe they'll be like, well, I don't know.
But he's never been even in the mix until now.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, so he brought up Iowa. He's like, well, in a few years, maybe Iowa. But
yeah,
you got to, I mean, if you're a big time school and you're trying to replace a coach and David's name hadn't been out here before, now it is, I don't know. Maybe you're calling him up.
So why would David Taylor not accept this head coaching position?
Are you ready to say I'm done competing? 2 weeks ago, all you were thinking about was competition. Are you ready to give that up? Are you ready to leave State College and not be at Penn State anymore? Are you ready to, I think he probably, he's got a circle of people that he trusts, and one of them is Cale. And I think Cale and him probably hashed it out. And Cale obviously would not want him to leave, right? You want him there. You want him there training. You want him mentoring. You want him, at M2. There's just a lot of, he touches a lot of things around that program. I mean, I think a big part of the reason Dake's there, those guys are incredibly close. I don't think that Dake comes to State College without David, right? Jimmy Kennedy is David's brother-in-law. He's on staff. So there's just a lot of connectivity there. And, I think he's just maybe just not ready to leave yet.
One of the simplest things is he's still the Olympic alternate. One injury to Aaron Brooks, and all of a sudden, he's right back then in there with an opportunity to be a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Yeah, absolutely. That's also true as well. And, and from Cale's perspective, this is he kind of stopped his career. Now, he came back in 2011, but, after he won the Olympics, he was kind of done. And I wonder if it's a little bit like, you only have this window to do this so long. And are you sure you want to be done when you clearly can still win? You clearly can still compete with the best in the world. And you lost 2 to Aaron Brooks, but I don't think that means you're not still one of the best. He's one of the 2 or 3 best in the world. And on another day, maybe he beats Aaron Brooks, but that was not the day. And what did I say? What did I say going into the Olympics? What I thought that David's plan, or going into trials, I thought David would, the plan was make the team, win the Olympics, go 92 for a little bit, and come back down in 28. I thought that was good to do based on the Nike signing and based on all that other stuff going on. So do you quickly imagine you have this like vision for yourself for the next 4 or 5 years, and then one slight, not slight, but you have this huge change in plans when Aaron beats him. And are you ready to completely do the hardest right turn you can do and say, I'm done competing and now I'm coaching and now my life. David has his hands in a lot of things. He's got a club. He's got businesses. His wife has businesses. They have deep roots. And now when you're the head coach at Oklahoma State, there's no side interests. There's no hobbies. And I think he recognizes that too. Like when you're that Division I college coach, he's watched Cale and those guys do this for 15 years now. That's the focus. That's a drain. I don't want to say drain, but that's strain on the family, a different kind of one than you're currently dealing with. It's, if you have interest in being entrepreneurial in your side businesses, I think a lot of that has to go away, and you have to take focus off that. And is he ready to take that focus totally off that and put it all on this one single thing? And maybe his answer is just not today, not yet.
He's clearly not seriously invested in his livestock business, or else he would go learn from the GOAT, John Smith.
That's true. That's true. I think that's.
Oh, here's your cute 2 head of cattle.
Oh, he has 3.
3.
You liar.
It's nothing to John's 35.
He may have, but he may have more Scottish Highlands than.
That's a good point.
John.
That's a good point.
Show ponies, not workhorses.
Okay. Anything else they're saying? Anything else I didn't hit on?
And how much of it is, yes, David Taylor has been with Cale forever, but how much of it is, I've only been in the room. I don't really know the back end of how this machine operates. I don't know the day-to-day what Cale, Cody, and Casey are doing in the office, not in the wrestling room, stuff like that. I'm really not sure. And if I leave now, I don't get quite that insight. It's not like, Cale's going to be like, hey, here's how you step-by-step create the best program in the country. But I could go and I could learn. I could be an assistant under my hero for, a couple of years. Maybe Cale retires and in 10 years, I can go wrestle another cycle, go be an assistant for 4 years, really learn the ropes, and then I could maybe take over this program.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about natural successors for Cale, it just seems like it would be him. But again, he's 44. What?
Yeah.
Gable retired super young. He was like 49.
And
I don't.
Cale probably has a much better work-life balance than
Absolutely.
Cale did, as he is not in the hospital regularly.
He is not. He is not in the hospital regularly. I mean, Gable, I think one thing that differentiates Cale from Gable is his ability to delegate and use the people around him. Where it feels like just Gable had the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he kind of put it there and just made it so he was the everything, right? Whereas it seems, and this is speculation, but you read A Season on the Mat, you listen to Dan Gable interviews, it just feels like it was just the only thing he was doing, and he was doing everything. Whereas at Penn State, and this is speculative, but we basically know that there's a really
roles.
There's roles, and makes sense, and it's not that they're not working constantly, but I think it's split up in a way that's smart and is going to give them longevity, right? And I think as long as the administration remains supportive of Cale, I don't see him stepping out. You saw what NIL, I feel like that's what has driven a lot of the best football and college basketball coaches out of the sport. Saban, Jay Wright, some of the guys that could have kept winning, and like an aspect of it, they're like, this is stupid now. I'm done with this. I'm trying to build a team, not these, whatever this has become. And so I think if it would take something like that, but I don't think the sport's ever going to get there. And I think it's going to be basically a one-way street for Penn State generally. They may get the good guys in, but their best guys, I think, are never going to look elsewhere. They generally haven't. Nick Sirianno's basically the only example, and he's left literally every place he's ever been.
Yeah, it's one of the, I think, more interesting comparisons between Gable and Cale is like Gable built this incredible wrestling machine as well, and one of the byproducts was regularly churning out head coaches at other programs, and they were people that were coaching like in the style of Dan Gable, and it was was the biggest thing. Whereas the machine Cale's building, it just seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's like, it started with college success, then all of a sudden, the best guys internationally are coming to train in State College, Dake, Snyder, Gilman. So international part's growing. You get the MMA arm. Bo Nichols got, American Top Team Gym right there. Yeah. You've got the MMA option. You've got now the high school, not exactly feeder program, but with M2 there. I mean, you look at the recruits the last few years that have spent their senior year training with David Taylor at M2, Zach Ryder, Levi Haynes, Tyler Kasich. I mean, this machine keeps getting like bigger and bigger and multifaceted, which that's the thing. It's like, well, how can you possibly keep all these people around? They're finding a way to do it, and it's working.
Would this have been the thing that made the levy break?
Well, I mean, I think if David did go, he's going to bring in a team of people he knows and trusts. And those people are in State College. I think, so I don't know, levy break, I don't know, but it would be the first time notable departures from Happy Valley. I think that's the one thing you could say. But for, yeah, I don't know about that question. But I mean, obviously it's not going to happen now, but yeah, I think he was going to take staff that's at Penn State or in their training there, whatever. But now, they're staying.
Speculating, of course, until something is officially announced that could change. Here's another question for you. You say Penn State, Iowa, and Oklahoma State are your big three top-tier coaching position programs.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a scenario where Oklahoma State, by their standards, has another 4, 8, 10 average years, which for them is top 10, top 15, because they've built up a national championship standard there, where they fall out of that and they become another highly sought-after position, but not one of these extremely coveted top-tier coaching positions?
Well, I hope not, because I think the only thing that could remove Oklahoma State from that position is a lack of donor fan support, booster support. So if that were to go away, then yeah, you could see it. It feels to me like Oklahoma State is part of college wrestling's DNA, and it always will be. It's almost like Alabama has kind of always been like an absolute football, but they wandered in the desert for a little bit there before Saban came. And so it could be a little bit like that, but then all it took was the right guy, and then it was kind of back restored, and it was the juggernaut of juggernauts in college wrestling. And similarly, now will it ever be the juggernaut of juggernauts in college wrestling again? I would say that is unlikely with Penn State and Cale, not anytime soon. But your point is, yeah, I mean, we have been seeing it. They've been not what they were. They've been down. They were 18th 2 seasons ago. They were 10th this year. And at a certain point, do recruits still think I can win NCAA and Olympic and world medals here? That's all these wrestlers care about. But you look at the recruiting classes, and on paper, they're getting a lot of number one guys. I mean, you look at who they have there now. They've got Cody Merrill coming in. They're seemingly in for all these big transfers. So clearly,
a good team this year.
They should be really good again. But your point holds. Like, if you're not at that standard, then yeah, the looks you get change. And
the Oklahoma State athletic department is not the great powerhouse athletic department. You look at it across other sports, they just don't have the budget and the resources of your Michigans, Ohio States, Alabama, Texas. I know they don't have wrestling, but those type of athletic departments that you kind of see regularly have success across the board in all sports. So seemingly what's keeping Oklahoma State at this great level in college wrestling is the history, the lore, and the donor support.
Yeah, and they've remained. They've had a lot of relevant athletes over the last couple of years, and so yeah, they need to. Coleman will need to produce, and because that's a high pressure job for sure.
There are not a lot of places where you can go to a wrestling dual meet on a Sunday afternoon and have 7,000-8,000 fans come and be fully invested and know what's going on. And Stillwater's one of those. Even last year when they finished 18th, I got a chance to, or 2023 season when
Okay,
I got a chance to go to the Missouri Oklahoma State duel, and it was, I mean, just electric. Like the volume, the level of fan interest, super high, and that was not one of Oklahoma State's best teams even in recent memory. So that part of wrestling being in the fabric of Oklahoma State, like that, you can work with that. You bring a recruit in on the right dual meet, like that's gonna help for sure.
Here's another question for you. Was Penn State one of these positions pre-Kale, and will it continue to be in a post-Kale era, let's say 20 years from now?
Of course it wasn't. He made it. Shout out to the administration for thinking big and going for it and bringing in Kale. But it does seem like at this point it will be tough. The succession plan, whenever that comes, it feels like they're going to have the right person ready to take it on. I just can't see Penn State dipping too far below, just given all the people they have around it right now.
I agree. But there's a scenario 20 years post-Kale.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scenario, yeah, for sure. But
Now we're just talking insane, far out hypothetical.
But think about even like Gable's almost, he's almost 30 years out at
Right.
Iowa, and they're still in the top. They won 3 years ago. They're in the battles for the top every year, right? They're not winning every year, but they're perennially in contention, and they're 30 years removed, and they've maintained that. And pre-Gable, Iowa wasn't Iowa,
Right.
So I think it's probably something like that where
He has built the tradition there that you saw was built at Oklahoma State in the 30s, 40s, 50s. Iowa was built in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
yeah, Shane should be on here soon. Hopefully, he's going to be announcing the next head coach. We got stuff. Just kidding. Shane wanted some magic in Stillwater. He was tweeting about it.
He did.
Okay, well, until he comes on,
We got a question.
okay, hit it.
Okay, so David Taylor rumored to Oklahoma State. Kyle Dake to Iowa in a post-Brands world. Do you think Kyle Dake is an exceptional head college wrestling coach as well?
I don't know. Does he want that? I mean, like, Dake, Burrows, and David get rattled around there as potential college coaches, but I feel like Kyle and Jordan have never really seemed to express a lot of interest in that, the way I've heard David publicly and privately say, hey, yeah, I would like to be a college coach. So I don't know. I'm not as sure. I don't know if that's something he would want to do either. So I don't know.
I went back and rewatched when Ben interviewed him in 2020
I did too.
at HQ. Fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
But he seemed like he might have some interest in coaching based on that. You could see he's thought about coaching, maybe not necessarily college. He seems to be a much more technical, like kind of in the weeds type of guy, and how he thinks about things, and not as much big picture. But theoretically, I'm guessing so was Kale probably.
Yeah. Thing is, I think Kyle's going to be around another 4 years. I don't think now, maybe if he wins the Olympics, it's like, I'm done. But
Did it.
But I don't know. Part of me thinks he's not leaving, or leaving the sport anytime soon competitively. And maybe that's another thing. Maybe that's another thing for David is like, well, if Kyle's going to keep going, I want to keep going. I'm speculating that, but
Would Kyle stick at 74, or do you think he'd move back up to 79 in off years?
I don't think so, because you don't want to lose that spot, right? I mean, he's going to medal, right?
He's going to medal, get the advantage.
If he didn't medal, maybe, but I do think the cut is hard for him, but at the same time, I think it's hard for all these guys, and he'd still be competitive there. So I don't see that happening, but yeah, you never know. Could be the case. All right, keep it. What's next, JD? I don't know what's up with Shane.
Should we go Portal?
Yeah.
Portal talk. Portal's going crazy recently.
It's going. Yeah, you got. I mean, the Cam Amin one was pretty surprising. I did not expect that, and I think it is not a coincidence that Tyler Meisinger no-showed for this. I mean, this dude, Ben leaves the show, he immediately flies to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, basically skips last week's show. He makes such a big impression on Sion that he doesn't even know his name.
Yep.
And then Cam Amin goes in the portal, and where's Tyler Meisinger? All points bulletin. We don't know where he is. He's not here. He may be on a flight back, but that can't be confirmed.
Nope.
So, yeah, is Cam going to leave? Is he ultimately going to leave Michigan wrestling? I mean, you think the Amins and Michigan are like hand in hand. It would be a surprise. And I don't know, you know, it's kind of interesting. You see some of these guys go in the portal. Alirez, Cam, Colton. What do we think about all three of those guys' last performances? Disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Colton lost to Adam Kuhn. If Colton Schultz is on the Olympic team, does he mess around with the portal? I don't think so.
Now,
If Cam Amin places and doesn't lose to Garvin, does he portal? Probably not. Andrew Alirez, if he's on the Olympic team, if he doesn't give up 13 points or whatever to Nick Lee, does he go in the portal? I don't think so. So a lot of this, I feel like the down performance, then it's like, all right, I'm not going to say blame game, but, you know, I think it'd be really surprising to see those guys making those moves if they're winning and placing. So I think when you lose, then you start to figure out, all right, what do I want to go here? And I also think there's a lot of mystery money out there that people think is out there. Maybe you throw your hat, okay, yeah, I'll go in the portal, see what I'm worth. And you find out, wait, maybe not that many people are willing to pay, or what you were offered at your original institution was actually pretty fair. And so maybe that's what's going on with Colton. I don't know. Someone asked me what was the most surprising portal person of this year. I said Colton without a doubt. I was shocked because when I see those guys, I mean, they've because no other program, I mean, not only did they invest in Colton, in my opinion, they went out of their way. They supported his Greco. I mean, he took the whole first semester off just to try to make that to win senior nationals and qualify the weight. They've been like that for years. And also, I remember when Arizona State came to Austin, they dueled Michigan, kind of. I remember watching, and that was 2022 season. And I remember Colton was like, it seemed like he was the guy, the leader. He was like breaking it down after practice and being like kind of like a captain type of guy. So the idea that he would leave and, everything that Arizona State had seemingly on paper, and I don't know everything, but I just know what I've observed. And it looked like a program that had really invested in not just Colton's folk style, but also his international dreams, which really don't correlate that strongly to folk style success. You got a guy that's trying to make a freestyle team and leg grabbing, that's one thing, but you're supporting this thing that it really does not have a lot of transferability to folk style wrestling. So I thought that was pretty noble, and that's why I was so stunned to see it. And I don't know if he thought better of it. It's weird to go in and then pull out like that, but that's seemingly what happened. But I'm told we have Shane Sparks on. Is that true? I'm looking for his face somewhere. Is it? If Shane's here, there he is. What's up, Shane?
How are you guys doing?
I'm
Good to
better
see you
now.
guys.
Good to see you. What's up, man?
Now, it looks like I'm looking at my own screen. My face doesn't look that red. On your screen looks a little bit red, but I am a little bit sunburned. You guys, I'm going to give you guys a bucket list item before we dive into wrestling. I went to my first ever Kentucky Derby, and It was sensational. Yes.
Okay, high society.
Yeah.
It was
Kentucky
awesome.
Derby?
Jim Littlejohn is an Indiana wrestling official. Big thanks to Jim. His hospitality was amazing. It was one of the coolest days of my entire life. One of the coolest sporting events ever. I would tell anybody, put it on the bucket list and find a way to get there. It's like the NCAA wrestling championships. You got to get there. But I would tell you this. If you go once, you're going to be hooked. I mean,
Really?
you go to one NCAA tournament, you're gonna be hooked because it's so good. I would say the Kentucky Derby, it is right there. It is so cool.
I love a mint julep as much as anybody, but I don't know. I don't think I belong at the Kentucky Derby.
Well, remember
you love it,
JD? JD, before we hired you, you were at jockey school at Nebraska Kearney, and you gave up that dream of being a jockey to come here. But I think this could be the push you need to get back on the horse, literally.
Oh, JD, you'd love it, man. You'd fit in. The people would love you. I mean,
They
you're one of
love
those guys that you're like the chameleon. I mean, it doesn't matter what environment you're in. You're always going to be one of the top 5 coolest guys wherever you're at. So you'd be just fine.
It seems a little high class for my taste, but
JD be the first guy at the Kentucky Derby with jean shorts and a bolo tie.
Oh, it was. Oh no, it's a mixed bag. I mean, it is a mixed bag. I mean, you got the high society, and then you have the infield where it gets a little rowdy. I mean, it's all kinds. No doubt.
You're so, man. Shane is really fancy these days. This is Kentucky Derby.
Oh, it was fun. I know nothing about horse racing, but I've always just been intrigued by it. I just think it's cool.
Yeah.
I'll give you guys this. I'll ask you guys this question. If you could get a selfie with any athlete, who would you want to get your selfie with? Any athlete. Who do you want to get
Secretariat.
a selfie with?
That's a great question. A selfie?
You'd go Secretariat, JD, for real?
I don't know.
Man, I don't know.
Secretariat's still alive.
I'm not a big
Still
selfie
studying
guy.
them out.
Who would I want to get a picture? Cale Sanderson.
Okay.
Yeah, I could
All
love
right.
him.
I'm going Rich Strike. Won the Kentucky Derby 2 years ago, 80-1, 80-1 dog, and he won the Kentucky Derby. It is unbelievable how he won. Rich Strike. That'd be my guy.
He's a chump compared to the Secretariat.
Here's the thing I'll say, Shane. What color is Rich Strike?
He's brown.
Okay, perfect. Just find a brown horse and just say this is Rich Strike. Who's gonna know? Who's gonna be like, hold on a second, that's not Rich Strike?
That's true. That's true.
The horses kind of all look alike.
I actually called up the farm last week that he was born at, but like his whereabouts aren't really known. But his dad, I think his dad's name is Keen Ice. His dad is still at that farm, but because of the liabilities and stuff, you can't go see him. Because I'd love to see his dad too. It'd be great.
I would get a selfie probably with Pyomai. That's my favorite horse ever.
R.I.P.
You know Pyomai?
I don't.
Well, it got incinerated, but it was a great racehorse from the show Sopranos.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Spoiler alert. If you're just now watching this 20-year-old show, Pyomai gets burned to death, and it's sad.
What a time in college wrestling, huh?
What do you think about all this portal stuff, Shane? I feel like you love it.
I would say this. It reminds me a little bit of like Hot Stove League baseball.
Yeah.
And that's super exciting, and I love it as a fan. But I've said this before, and this transfer stuff, in my opinion, it's great for the athletes. I don't fault them at all, but I think it's pretty bad for college wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, there is that conflict that's going on in my soul with it, in that, man, if exactly, you don't fault them, but you it's just sort of gross a little bit. It's sort of a little bit like,
there's just no it's like the Wild West. I mean, and again, I don't know this stuff. I don't study it, but it just appears to me like there's just no boundaries, right? I mean, it's just kind of a free for all.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a free for all, and more kids stay than leave, but there is something, I don't know. The Alira's one definitely stinks. Schultz, I'm glad he's staying, but these guys that I don't know. What I think is and this is not related to any transfer at all, but I think what you're losing in some of these programs because of this is like you're losing a team, you're losing a culture. When everyone is just asking your teammates, "Hey, what are you getting? What are you getting?" It's like, man, is that now what college sports is? Everyone just asking each other what they're making and getting jealous, and then I'm gonna leave and you don't appreciate me. It's definitely
all
a departure.
understandable.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you can look at this from 5 or 6 different angles and very different opposite angles, and it all makes sense. I mean, it's one of those topics where you could debate, like I said, 5 or 6 different things that are all very opposite, but they all make sense. They
Yeah.
all make sense. I mean, like even like you just said, let's say I'm at a school for 3 years, I've been successful, and now somebody else comes in. They give them whatever. I'm wondering, hey, I've been here for 3 years. I've done this, that, and this, and I don't get that same thing. Like it is. I will tell you this. I do not envy at all being a head wrestling coach right
No.
now. Like that is a man. I wouldn't. I don't envy those guys at all. At all.
What were your thoughts on the David Taylor Oklahoma State news? I saw you tweeting a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, guys. I mean, I'm just talking more as a fan, as from a wrestling observer. Okay, I think David Taylor is a difference maker. I mean, if you asked me, and you guys know me, I don't give a ton of opinions, ton of predictions. In my opinion, if I am a college administrator, David Taylor's getting a blank check and we're getting a deal done. And that is no disrespect to anybody else. I'm not saying anybody else wouldn't do a good job. I'm not saying that. But if you said to me, Shane, right now in the wrestling landscape, in the entirety of the wrestling landscape, you got one guy. You got one. Who are you taking? To me, I would say David Taylor, and it would probably take me less than 2 seconds to give you that answer.
Yeah.
So again, this is not against anybody else. I just think David Taylor is that guy. I mean, and I see some of the stuff on Twitter, and I don't want to diminish in any way what goes into being a college wrestling coach, because I understand that there's a lot to it, a lot that I don't know. I don't know what really. I know a little bit about it, but that's it. But I think Taylor's one of those guys. When you look at, he's been there for what? I mean, what was he? 2010. Years. I mean, he's been there for what? 15 years almost.
Got there. He got there in 2009.
Okay. I mean, so he's been there a long time. I mean, he understands. I mean, I think I really agree with. I mean, I agree with Ben Askren probably 99% of the time. And I think it was Nomad had something about he hasn't done this, and that. And I think Ben's response was like, that's all true, but he's the most obvious choice. And I agree with that 100%. I think if you are in Oklahoma State, this makes sense. Again, my perception, maybe people at Oklahoma State would be like, no, I mean, I'm just giving you my 2 cents, and I'm not saying I'd be right. I'm just telling you, if I'm the guy making the call, I am not going to, if I am any administration, I'm just not feeling bad on rolling the dice on David Taylor. Like I will roll the dice on David Taylor all the time. Yeah. Every time. I'm just doing it. So I would love to see him. And it's so crazy, guys. I think one thing I was thinking about as much as anything here is life in general. Like life in general is so, I mean, we make jokes with Andy Hamilton, and I'm on this thread with Andy Hamilton, and we always joke about anything can happen. Yeah. You never know. But it is so true, because think about this. We might not be here if it's not for, a couple of seconds in a wrestling match with Aaron Brooks and Zahid. I mean, who would have ever thought that perhaps a little singlet tug would lead to David Taylor perhaps going to Oklahoma State or anybody else, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of stuff where it's like, it can be the littlest things. It can, life can turn on a dime. Life can change in a second. And it's like the ripple effect, the ramifications of one thing happening over here. It's crazy, the ripple effect on how things go. And I think it's fascinating. And I'm really curious to see, what happens. Yeah. I don't know, but I think this too, and it's just me shooting my mouth off. But I mean, David, he's I think he likes Stillwater too. I don't. Yeah. Maybe he wants to be in the big city, but he seems to me. I mean, he's Wyoming, obviously. Mm-hmm. I think it's where he was born or where he was raised for a good chunk before they went to Ohio. His mom and dad, great people, kind of. I just think I think he'd fit well in Stillwater. I think he'd fit well with. He's got the farm in Pennsylvania and all that stuff. He likes that stuff. So I think Stillwater's a place where, I don't want to speak for him, but again, I'm just guessing here that he'd be like, yeah, this is a cool place. And I think this too with David Taylor. Again, I keep saying my opinions because I'm just shooting my mouth off. But David Taylor's competitive. He's a winner. I mean, he wants to win. I mean, second place is not going to do it for David Taylor. He's not going someplace to take second place. He's going to win. And Oklahoma State, obviously, you can win in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Like, wrestling's important there.
Yeah.
He'd give that program a shot in the arm, I think.
I think, yeah, the small town. David seems like a small town guy, right? He's kind of lived. Yep. I mean, State College is a small town for sure. He likes the farm life. I think on the OSU side, you kind of alluded to, hey, how is the fan base gonna receive him? I think that's all on how David carries it. I personally, Shane, I don't know if you listened to the beginning of the show. I think David is going to decline. It's going to be Coleman. But hypothetically, if he were to go there, if his first couple moves are, hey, he brings in some of his guys, but he brings in some sort of a cowboy tie. If he were to do that, if he were to wrap his arms around the tradition and the state, then I think it wouldn't take long and a little bit of winning for that town and that school to be 100% behind him, if not more. So it's all on how you carry it when you get there, especially when you're an outsider, right? And I think David's smart enough to navigate that and know how to play that game with that fan base and the people that are around the program. But yeah, I don't know if we'll see it. I don't think we will, as I've said, but I think he would handle that pragmatically and it'd be all right.
Yeah, I mean, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think back to, when he was at Penn State early on, he was one of the first guys, at least that I remember, that was, kind of marketed himself. I mean, he had a couple of, he's one of the first guys to get some deals, some business deals, and he's a smart guy. I mean, I just have a ton of respect for him on the mat, what he's able to accomplish on the mat. But obviously, you want to be a head coach of a program. It's a lot more than that. But he's a smart guy, and I just think he'd be successful.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying he's going to come out and they're going to be winning national titles in the next 5 years. I no idea, but I think it's just fun this time of year. You get that kind of a storyline in college wrestling. It definitely gets everybody's attention. You had the portal stuff. I mean, yeah, it's exciting, right? I mean, this time of year typically might not be a whole lot of stuff to talk about, but as wrestling fans, it's just it's fun to talk about, at least from our vantage point.
Yeah. We haven't got to catch up since Olympic trials. I'm certain you watched and everything. What were your thoughts on some of the bigger stories? Obviously, Jordan Burroughs was a main topic of conversation. I saw you kind of tweeting about the drama around that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. It's a great event. I mean, man, I remember the very first one I went to was in 2008. That's when Henry won it in Vegas. So I've been to, I don't know what does that make that, 4 or 5 of those? It's a great event. I thought, I do like this. I don't care where it is. Tim Johnson has always said this, and I agree 100%. My favorite arena is an arena that's sold out.
Yep.
I don't care where it's at. So I thought Penn State did a great job hosting it. It was a packed house. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a Penn State fan base. Yeah, whatever. I don't mind any of that. Hey, I've never been a guy. I'm just not a booer. I'm not a guy that yells at athletes, and I don't buy into I bought a ticket so I can do what I want to. I thought Jordan Burroughs, and I get it. Again, it doesn't keep me up at night, but watching Burroughs get booed, and again, it's just such a small segment. It's one arena, it's one night, whatever. But Jordan Burroughs should never be booed. I would say that. The Brooks Taylor match. I haven't talked to David at all. I'd be curious. I know that it's such a huge advantage to be able to sit out. Yeah. I understand that. But I also, you look at Aaron Brooks, and we've seen this in the last decade with wrestling. Those guys come off a college season. You look at Jake Herbert, I'm just going off of memory. Herbert was a world silver. Gilman was a world silver. Green. Snyder obviously had success during college. I just think there's something to be said for that hard college wrestling season and momentum. Brooks wins. He has to come back to beat Daringer. Big win. He has to come back to beat Zahid. Big win. I know he had to stay up, super late to make weight, but I just think there's something to be said for momentum. It's why, as a, I always, as a Braves baseball fan, I don't like it when they win the division and there's 3 weeks in the regular season and they get the bye and whatever. That's a whole nother debate. But I like momentum, and I'm not so sure, as big of an advantage as it is, I'm not sure that, that break is always good. I mean, the analytics would show that it is. But, I mean, David hadn't, right? He hadn't wrestled. He hadn't wrestled in a long time.
Exactly.
And then you come out against Aaron Brooks, who's, again, coming off that college season, coming off a couple of big wins. It just, and Aaron Brooks is phenomenal. I mean, it's not like it's just anybody. I mean, was I surprised by it? Not really. I mean, Aaron Brooks is phenomenal. I mean, these guys are so good. I thought it was a really good event. I mean, it's so tough to make that team. I mean, 6 weight classes. It's, I mean, you make that team, you're a superstar, and that played out.
Yeah, I think your point on the Aaron, the momentum. I think also youth is so big. Like you remember you can do things for a while, just like the meme of like the college kids up all night and they still do, similarly, these guys can endure a lot physically. And if you're young enough, you can recover and be okay. I think the real advantage is someone like, if you're at a Jordan Burroughs stage of your career or later, and you have to run through the gauntlet and then wrestle a 2-out-of-3 guy, it's a little different than if you're Aaron Brooks and you're just young. And I do think the momentum and the competing, it's like, I think it helps. I think you need to be wrestling at the weight probably more than once a year. But the problem is you don't always have to. And David didn't have to last year. So it works until it doesn't. And it's tough to correlate it or, the reasons why. And you can't say, man, if David had had more competitions, he would have beaten Aaron. You don't know that either.
You don't know. I mean, Kozak does such a great job on the, covering freestyle wrestling with stats and all that. I'd be curious to know. One thing I thought about was I'd be curious to know if you took, David Taylor's last 100 matches, when's the last time he didn't get a takedown? David Taylor, even his losses, scores a bunch of points. I mean, the fact that Brooks did not allow a takedown was, that's incredible. David Taylor is a scoring machine.
Yeah, and you probably have to go back to some of the Dake matchups in freestyle.
Sure. I would agree. The other thing too, Christian, I would throw this in here real quick. You mentioned Burroughs. The more that time rolls on, the more I just get a deeper appreciation for how good he is.
Yeah.
What he's been able to do is nothing short of amazing. What is he, 30? Jordan, 35 now?
Yeah.
He's 35 and he's still, let's face it. He's still, and I'm being conservative here, he's a top 10 guy in the world.
Absolutely.
Top 10 guy in the world at 35 years old. You're top 10 in the world at anything else on the planet. You are, it's really hard to comprehend his level of greatness.
And, he's top 2 or 3 at his actual weight class of 79.
Sure.
So if you think about that, it's even higher level.
And I was glad he didn't, I wasn't sure if he put the shoes down. I was glad he didn't.
Yeah.
I was glad he didn't. I have no idea what he plans on doing. I'd love to see him. He's just so darn good. He can definitely keep going. And obviously talking about the guys that retired, you think about how, again, that kind of gives you a little bit of context in comparison to Burroughs, but you look at how great some of these guys are. Jaden Cox, legend. Mark Hall, great career. Vincenzo Joseph, great career. I might be missing some people.
Marinelli, yeah.
But, Marinelli, those guys are late 20s, right? Late 20s, maybe 30, early 30s at the most. And Burroughs, and as you guys, it's one, going from 30 to 31 isn't going from 20 to 21. You get past 30, and every one of those years is almost like dog years. They count as 7.
Yeah.
So the fact that it might not seem like a big deal. Oh, Burroughs is 35. Those guys might be 30. That's a big gap. To be able to excel from 30 to 35 is a different ball game. But Olympic trials, those are great. Now we'll see, this weekend with Spencer and Rutherford. And it's not going to be easy. Those are going to be tough.
Yeah, it definitely is. And they'll be going down Saturday. They're wrestling in Turkey. So it's like 2 a.m. Central is when it gets started. And then, so I guess that's 3 Eastern, right? And then you've got
11 a.m. on Saturday.
Yeah, and Saturday morning,
or
the semis.
semis.
Yeah.
But you
You
win
got to be
those
top 3.
top 3, yep. So if they win early rounds and then at 11 a.m. Central, semifinals will get underway. If they win there, they're in. If they lose in the semifinals or the early rounds and they get pulled back into repechage, that'll be on Sunday, kind of under the same schedule where it'll start up at 2 a.m. Central.
Think about.
I mean, both those guys look great, but I thought Spencer was, man, he looks really good. So excited for both those guys this weekend.
Which you can watch on live on Flow.
Yeah, you can watch it all. You can get up early with us and watch. Yeah, it's a really, man, you think about the incentives in this tournament and just how hard guys are going to be competing. The Olympic spot on the line, but especially in that first day, if you make that final, you don't have to weigh in the second day and go through all that. I mean, these scraps are going to be insane and
high stakes.
High stakes. And, I think people are a little dismissive of just the difficulty involved here. This is one of the toughest tournaments in the world that are going to happen this year. And it's just to get into the tournament. And what do we think happens if Spencer and Zane get in the tournament? We think they can win a lot of matches. I think they'll contend for medals for sure. And they may not get in. It's going to be that tough. So man, fingers crossed. It would be a real, I don't know if embarrassing. It'd be embarrassing if we had only 4 weights qualified. That's embarrassing. We get to go to the Pan Ams. Like we are America and we're in our golden era. If we only get 4, that's bad.
Yeah, you got to get. Yeah, I mean, I agree. You got to get 6.
Not good.
I mean, you got to have them all there.
And you know what? I've been kind of meaning to say this. It doesn't come up organically, but I thought it was weird that that Greco and women's let their athletes sit out to the final if they qualified the weight. And now I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, that might have been a good idea. You want maximum. I think they should expand who can wrestle off for that Pan Am wrestle off. I think they should expand that. I think senior nationals winner should get to contend just as well as the previous world medalists like Gilman and Vito could have and Dayton all could have challenged for the spot and declined. If put it this way, if they had said, "Hey, if you qualify the weight, you get a bye to the trials finals." Do you think Thomas, Gilman, Dayton Fix, and Vito throw their hat in the ring? I think so.
Yeah, that's a really good thought.
Yeah, and so I think if the worst happens and they don't, I think USA needs to have some protections. And you want your best crack every step of the way. You want your best rep at Worlds, and then you want your best rep for the next qualifier and your best rep for the next qualifier. I think this is the way you incentivize that, because what you had is Thomas and Vito and Dayton are like, man, I can only probably do this 1 or 2 times. I'm not going to try to do it for a wrestle off and that. But if you qualify it, you're in. I think we maybe get it done. And even for Zane, it's like, not that Zane needed more, motivation, but man, Zane Richards, if you beat Darren Cruz, you're in the 2 out of 3 finals for the Olympic trials. Like, I'm not saying that changes your effort, but who knows? I think incentives are everything, and that could have been a contributing factor for him. Because it was that for Darian Cruz. For Darian Cruz, it was that do or die match. If I do this, I'm going to the games. It'd be close to that if you win that. So I'm curious if they look at it and say, hey, maybe we open this up, we change how we're doing it, and maybe they're a little bit behind and you want to be kind of out in front of the problems, but at the same time, it could be a smart move to.
Any news on Russia yet at the Olympics?
Yeah, go JD.
Most of their guys are probably good. As of right now, Russia will most likely be there in terms of all Russian athletes, but then it comes down to specific athletes and their history on their stance on the Ukraine war. most of their guys are good. The real big question mark right now is Sadulayev. He was not allowed to wrestle at Euros, so he could be a big question mark. It sounds like I personally think he might not get in.
It's certainly a possibility, and I don't know what would have to change, but it always seems like in the 9th hour, things get figured out and they're there. 16, they had an issue unrelated to war.
They didn't get in 2022.
Worlds. Olympic Games, they get in.
In Euro Games, 97 was to qualify too. That's why it's a little bit different this time around. And pretty much all of Europe, including France, where the Olympic Games are held, are pretty strongly against Russia. And Sadulayev was planning on going. He got on a plane and left and got stopped halfway through when they said, no, you have shown too much support for
The war.
Russia. And it's war in Ukraine that you cannot wrestle.
It kind
And
of
it
makes
was an IOC that did that, an independent group. UWW, it sounded like, tried to get him through and they were unable.
kind of makes you wonder if like this gives him the path to get in the next time. Is just, okay, take down this post or post something, whatever. Because you think about even Worlds in 2023, which was an Olympic qualifying event. The week of the event, it was like a bunch of Russians weren't going to be in. And then all of a sudden, I mean, what, 48 hours or 72 hours, like within a couple days, all of a sudden, boom, they're in. So if Sadulayev gets, you know, denied access to the Euro qualifier, it may be something where it's like, hey, it's because of these posts. It's because of these things. And if all he has to do is whatever, take down some posts or something. I mean, I think it seems like they're going to leave a path open for him, you know, until the very end. And we're not going to be able to rule anything out until the, you know, the brackets come out the day of the event.
Yeah.
Also, to go back to the qualifier, if you're listening to this show, you probably don't, or you probably do know, but if you're unaware, you have to qualify for the Olympics. They only do 16-man brackets at the Olympics, or else the brackets would be huge because so many countries would send teams. So you have to place top 5 at the previous year's World Championships, which USA did that at 4 weights, not at 57 and 65. So Zane Richards and Nick Lee had to qualify at Pan Am's, which they were unable to do. They both lost in the semi-final round. So now the winners of the Olympic trials, Spencer Lee and Zane Rutherford, are currently en route or already there in Turkey, trying to qualify, where they will have to place top 3. If they do not do that, they do not get to wrestle at the Olympics.
We out.
Yep.
That's why Jordan Oliver didn't wrestle at the games. Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah. What do you guys think about Gable Steveson?
I mean, so for years we've been talking about this, and everyone knows how I feel about the WWE, just generally as a product and a entertainment avenue. If you like it, that's great. I like wrestling, and that's weird. I know that. So, but I'd never. Here's the reasons I always thought it was sort of. I was worried, and maybe it's my inner dad or pragmatist, but I know that Gable Steveson is the greatest heavyweight I've ever watched wrestle. And I did not know that he would be the greatest performer, actor, action star, WWE guy. I thought it was a strange fit for his skills. And I thought, you know, you don't leave what you're the best in the world at for something that's an unknown. And now here's what I don't know. I don't know the finances involved. That might have made it a no-brainer, and he might have been getting paid so much you're just silly to pass on the opportunity. But I think clearly it didn't end how Gable had planned for it to go. And it's, man, I'm disappointed for him, and I'm sure he's disappointed. But, you know, on the plus side, he's still so young. He's, what is he, 23, 24? He could come back.
His birthday's end of the month.
Yeah, he could rattle off a bunch of titles. Now, a lot of people thought the timing is super unfortunate, because if he was cut, does he throw his hat in the Olympic? But I think he could have done that if he wanted to anyways, without the WWE dynamic. I think I mean, we saw him wrestle at the Open. We saw him wrestle at Final X. He clearly was getting permission to pursue international wrestling, and then he didn't wrestle at the World Championships. But was he told you can't wrestle at the Olympic trials? I don't think so. I think it was an opportunity he just didn't pursue. So I don't know if you can fully blame WWE for Gable not pursuing the Olympics. But now, what does he do? Does he come back to the sport and try to, make some world teams? Does he go MMA? Does he go some other route? We don't know. Does he continue to try to go down the fake wrestling route? Is that what he wants to do? I don't know. Obviously, everyone knows since day one, I just wanted him to stay in wrestling and just rattle off, I don't know how many straight world and Olympic titles, but I think it'd be a lot. So yeah, I don't know what's next for Gable, but I would love to see him return to the mat because he's got a lot of wins still in front of him if he wants that.
Here's a question for you.
And I don't know the story, but I feel for him.
Yeah.
Because I would say this, Christian, as much as I loved him wrestling, being the guy, I 100% thought it made sense, again, without knowing the details. But I mean, WWE superstars, I mean, those guys are big time, you know, so I'd be curious just to know why it didn't work out, but it just didn't work out for whatever reason. And hopefully we'll see what he does. He's just such an amazing athlete, wrestler. He'll land on his feet someplace.
Yeah.
Guys, I got a reverse course here real quick.
Okay.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Coming out of left field again, I always come out of left field once or twice on these shows. My stomach is finally calmed down from last night. Did you guys catch the Tom Brady roast?
No.
It was good. It was great.
It's the funniest 3 hours I've ever seen in my life. I've never laughed that hard for 3 consecutive hours.
That funny.
It was off the chain. Did you watch it, JD?
I watched a bunch of clips this morning. I didn't sit down and go start to beginning, but I saw all the highlights and it was pretty great.
The funniest guy, I thought if I had to pick one guy who I thought was the funniest, it was Will Ferrell being Ron Burgundy. I mean, I couldn't stop laughing. It was so good. It made me thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I wonder what it'd be like if there was like a wrestling roast.
Yeah.
They bring like 5 or 6 of the best guys around. They
get
roast
really
each other.
personal on this roast.
What would Jeff Ross say about Shane Sparks?
Oh my gosh, this roast. I mean, one thing with the roast. I mean, there is nothing that is off limits, and I mean nothing. I mean, some of the stuff they say, you almost feel a little bit guilty laughing about it because it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe they went there of all places. But I mean, they were teasing Gronk about his intelligence level. I mean, he was getting hammered.
Hinchcliffe was the best, in my opinion.
Yeah, I saw some clips.
Tony Hinchcliffe. He got
real
personal.
Yes, he was.
There wasn't enough Tom Brady kissing his son on the mouth for 60 seconds content.
Oh my gosh,
That's where I would have gone.
Oh my gosh, it was funny. So yeah, I just maybe we'll have to get that done sometimes, guys. We'll have to do a roast.
Do a roast.
Take some of wrestling's people, and that'd be funny. But
you look like you're getting roasted right now, as red as your face is, Shane.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's not as bad as it looks on the screen, but didn't go with the sunscreen, and it isn't peeling yet. But it was about 82 degrees, sunny, no rain. I know it rains. I mean, the night before in Louisville, it was pouring rain. Went to give you guys another real good suggestion here. Okay. I know a little off topic, but I try to give some life advice here. I don't know if you guys are bourbon guys, but there's a bourbon, E.H. Taylor small batch. Get some. It is really good. Okay. It would look good for you guys on the show. Sipping a little bourbon by the fireplace. You guys would be in good shape.
That's like the JD aesthetic, I feel.
Yeah.
Like a bourbon.
Really good. Bourbon. E.H. Taylor small batch. Really good. They got I mean, Louisville's got some really cool little, there was a little bourbon bar called Neat. It was good. It was
Shane,
it's a good city.
What was it? What was the hat situation out there? Did you get a hat?
You know what? I did not. I was just wearing a State and Liberty suit. I mean, there is no other choice when it comes to suits, as you guys
Use
well
code
know.
FloWrestling. Use code FloWrestling.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Get yours. I mean, it is. I mean, State and Liberty suits are the best. So I wore the State and Liberty suit. Did not have a hat. If I go again, I got to get a hat. I mean, I was a rookie, you know.
Yeah.
So didn't. And my girlfriend Lori, she bought a hat and forgot it, but then somebody else had one that borrowed to her, so she was good. So the hat game was. Next time, definitely wear a hat. The other thing I would probably do different next time is maybe mix colors up a little bit.
Yeah,
But,
were you too monochromatic?
Yeah, it was just, I mean, it's a great suit, but I probably mixed it up a little bit, add a little more, color to it.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, you guys got to get there. I mean, it is something. You got to get there once, but before it's all said and done, the Kentucky Derby, get there once. It's exciting. It is a different kind of vibe.
How much money did you win out there?
So I'm not a big gambling guy. The only reason I did anything was to say that, I mean, you're there. It's almost like it's like having a mint julep. Like you got to have one.
Mm-hmm.
So I just made, I made 2 bets, one on Honor Marie, $50, and another one on, what was his name? Fierceness. And he was doing, he was in the mix until that final turn, but that was it. So did not win any money. But that was it. I'm not a big, I mean, I heard the numbers. I mean, it's a huge deal there. I mean, you go there and put the bets down, but I'm just not a huge gambling guy. So, but I just did it to say I did it, and that's that.
Getting
questions. How about you guys? You guys do anything?
No, no, I didn't watch the Kentucky Derby.
You got it, Christian. And I'll tell you this: his name is Larry. I don't know if it's pronounced Calmus but he's
the cable guy.
The guy that does the play-by-play on NBC for the Kentucky Derby. Like, he's a guy I'd love to talk to. How he does that blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's kind of like hockey play-by-play guys. I mean, doing wrestling, you got 2 guys out there. Doing baseball, it's a slower pace. Like, you're focused on really, mainly 2 guys, maybe 3, 4 people in a play. But I mean, when you're doing, those guys that do hockey, that is a different kind of excellence for me. I mean, I just marvel at what they do. And the guy that does the Kentucky Derby, he's talented, really talented.
Well, they get that crescendo. It's like that build through the race and the energy.
Sure.
And it's like the climax at the end. That's the key part. And then, but yeah, juggling like who's making the move and who's doing what. You got to really know.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
We had a church performance last night. We were at that. The little kids put on
nice.
Bray's daughter, Kozak's daughters, and my daughter were all in that. So
I won $450 at that.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
they were live.
Gambling on church events now.
I made a bet about which one of the kids in the preschool was going to run off stage, and it was.
They sing.
That was an easy bet.
It's a singing deal.
Yeah, sing. Oh, we had it all. We had acting. We had singing, choirs.
You think a show father like yourself would be a fan of the WWE?
Yeah,
that's a good point. There is a lot of opportunity.
Christian, I know your wife's got a great voice. Are you a good singer? You guys sing?
No, I'm not. I'm musical, but I'm not a good singer.
Christian's wife once. I'm on Instagram with Christian, and he posted something. I'll be honest here. He posted something with her singing on Easter like 2 years ago, and it literally like choked me up. It was very powerful, very talented, very good.
Shane, you gotta get down here. You gotta get down here around the holidays because we'll go over to the Piles house and Christian and Katie, they're playing music. We'll get Connor he'll tickle the ivories. He's playing a little piano, sing some Christmas carols. This would be right up your alley.
Yeah.
You gotta come on down.
What we do? Do the carols.
Yeah. I love stuff. The older I get, I like doing stuff that I'm horrible at, and singing is like, if I go to church, like I give myself a headache. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Like it's just like I have zero. When it comes to singing, it's kind of like golf. It's one thing to be bad at golf.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one thing if it's like a par 4 and you get an 8, like you're bad. Whatever, but you can deal with that. If I go golfing, my brother's a golf course superintendent. I am so bad Like, I suck so bad. I'm not getting an 8. I'm getting like a 15. And it's like, we're not doing this for 3 hours. So I just sit in the cart and drive around. And I would say singing is about the same for me. I'm not just bad. It's like so bad where it's like, you are so bad. Like, just don't sing and listen to somebody. Like, just don't do it. So bad.
I think you went to too many concerts in the 80s. It blew out your ears, and now you're not able to match the pitch anymore. Who knows what could have been if you hadn't seen Huey Lewis in the News 5 times in the 80s.
Yeah, and Huey Lewis, his ears are. I saw him at Summerfest in Milwaukee. I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years ago already. But now his ears are messed up. So he's he's in his 70s. He was fantastic. I will tell you guys this real quick. It's about 2 a.m. Might have been a week. I think it was maybe last week. It's like 2 a.m. I can't sleep. So all of a sudden, my mind goes back to some musical concerts I've been to, and I was able to YouTube Town Fair, Latrobe, Pennsylvania, August of 2000. I was there. I won a contest. At that time, I was selling beer. I won a contest through Rolling Rock Brewery. So I was there's like a VIP, got to bring some buddies, one of the best weekends ever. Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh.
And I mean, I took the elevator with Flea. That was pretty cool.
Wow. You both got higher during that.
Was he closed?
Yeah, exactly. Watching Flea play the bass guitar, one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And another band that played was a band called Fuel. I think their main song was called Hemorrhage. But YouTube, Town Fair 2000. I think they have like most of the concert. Another guy I'd never heard of at that time was Moby. Never had heard of him until that day. He was really good. But hard to believe that's coming up on 24 years ago. I haven't been to too many concerts lately. I think number one on the bucket list right now has got to be Tears for Fears.
Really?
Yeah.
Still, that's number one.
Absolutely, Tears for Fears. I saw Pearl Jam was number one. I saw them last September in Chicago. Pearl Jam. Let me throw this past you guys. You guys can think about this a little bit. Mount Rushmore of bands.
Oh baby.
Any genre, any band. I got 2. I'm going AC/DC, Pearl Jam. I'd have to really think about 3 and 4. I might go Journey and Bruce Hornsby in the Range. That might be my 4.
Really?
It's most Shane Sparks.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Bruce Hornsby in the Range song?
Oh, Mandolin Rain.
Okay.
Mandolin Rain. I've seen Bruce probably 3-4 times. Oh, he's got some great ones, Christian. I've heard the name. I don't know. Are you familiar? Are you serious?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you serious? You guys, I'm telling you.
I'm like, I gotta look
Get
this
on
guy up.
iTunes and download some Bruce Hornsby in the Range. He's so good. I mean, he's so good. A lot of the acoustic stuff is fantastic. I'll get this to you guys. You guys will thank me.
Yeah. Can you burn me a CD?
I can't. Yeah. No more CDs.
Crap.
I go back to the tape because the Walkman. I remember my 1994 wrestling psych tape had AC/DC Thunderstruck was the first song on that, and I remember there was a band called the song was unbelievable. I think it was by a band called EMF. Early 90s. I remember that being on. TNT by AC/DC was on. Those are the ones that I remember.
What's your walkout song? NCAA Finals.
Yeah, that's an easy one. It's Thunderstruck.
Really?
It's Thunderstruck just because of the meaning. We all love music. We all love songs. We all love music for different reasons. 1994, trying to be a state champ. Thunderstruck. You guys are a little young, but some of the older Flow listeners will appreciate this story. 1991, I was a freshman in high school, and it was called, everybody will know what I'm talking about. You would get 8 CDs.
Oh, yeah, the Columbia or whatever.
Columbia House.
Yeah.
Columbia House, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So you would get Columbia House, you'd get the stamps, you'd get 8 CDs for a penny, and then you'd have to buy like 8 more over the course of the next 5 years for like $30 a pop.
Yeah.
But I remember of those 8, of my initial 8, I can still remember a good chunk. I went AC/DC, Razor's Edge, Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood, Slaughter, Stick It To Ya, one of the great album covers of the early 90s.
Of course.
I went Winger, Heart of the Young. There's 4.
Okay.
is happening?
Other 4, I didn't get to, I remember getting Warrant Cherry Pie at a Target in Oshkosh, Wisconsin my freshman year, so I bought that one.
The memory on you, Shane. The memory on you.
Black Crow Shaker. Warrant Cherry Pie is the first CD I ever bought.
That's inappropriate.
It's a great, that was like Uncle Tom's Cabin is the most underrated song on that CD. But
Okay.
those were, so yeah, to answer your question, AC/DC, but I love the song from a broadcast standpoint. The song that gets me fired up the most is when you're in Carver Hawkeye and you're doing a big dual meets and Back in Black plays, that hits you. That hits different. So the AC/DC. What about you guys? Who are you guys going with?
I don't know, but
Walkout song.
the drinking game has ruined Thunderstruck for me. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
What do you?
I'm not.
you get in a big circle with your friends, a couple of beers, and you start. One person starts, and every time the song says thunder, the next person chugs until it says thunder again.
Huh?
Because it says thunder like 150 times in that.
Really?
Okay.
Because thunder.
Thunder.
It's a
The next
great
person
song.
chugs.
Such a great song.
But there's two
And
really
that song's
long
over
ones in
30
there.
years old.
Yeah.
Holy cow!
So what are you going with, JD? What are you coming out to?
I don't know. I'd go more on the comedic side. Something like Who Let the Dogs Out, something like that. A little Baja Men
Man, that was
Kimmer.
from Kimmer. 'cause
that got
Chem
me
Dog.
pumped.
Yeah.
When Kimmer came out to that after he was out, and they're like, he's not gonna wrestle anymore, and he came. I think it was the Iowa State duel. That was so hype. That was like one of my favorite.
What about you, Christian?
I don't know what I would come out to. I'll say I know at NCAAs. Man, my favorite. I had 3 favorites. Richie Figs came out to "Feeling Myself" by Mac Dre, which is a song I had never heard, and I can't stop listening
Okay.
to it. And no one should listen to it, but because it's not good, but it's great. Kirk Fleet song, I think it's called "Stronger Than Ever." It was great. And then, but the place got the most rowdy when Caleb Henson came out to Enter Sandman, the Virginia Tech staple.
Yes.
That place, that was that had the
That was
most
good.
crowd participation, and it kept playing. I don't know if you remember, like the second guy that comes out, their song plays a little longer just because I don't know, TV or whatever. So it was pretty rowdy in there.
That's a cheat code. Your
Yeah.
school having one.
My favorite
Ray,
walkout.
what about you?
Well, I mean, if it's me, I'm probably gonna come out to I don't know, maybe DeBarge Rhythm of the Night. That'd be probably
Okay.
either that or you know, maybe you go like Dexy's Midnight Runner, go Come On Eileen. That'd be fun. But I think my favorite walkout moment from NCAAs was when Dustin Plott came out to Eastbound and Down, and Keckheisen came out to that Pump It Up song, and then in the post match interview, Keckheisen was like talking about this and this. He goes, anyway, he had a better walkout song than me. So
Yeah.
The one that I remember, I think it was last year's one that I really, really liked. I think it was Pat Glory came out to Cinderella Man, Eminem, and that's a great tune. Great song.
I don't know that one, but I mean, I probably know if
It's
I heard
good.
it.
Yeah, look it up. It's good. It's really good. But yeah, those yeah, you got to have a good walkout song.
Yeah.
Some of the Hawkeyes have, I think historically had some of the best walkout songs because you got Jacob Warner had Fat Bottom Girls.
That was
one was
great.
Yes.
great.
That
Yep.
was great.
Thomas Gilman would come out to Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys.
But he would mix it up. Was that always his?
No, but only
Yeah.
when he wrestled Dayton or Oklahoma State.
Well, the one time he wrestled Dayton, he famously did 16 tons by Tennessee
Yep.
Ernie Ford, which is great.
I liked Marinelli. I don't know if he did it every time, but he would come out at one point. He would come out to the Drago Rocky IV. Remember that? That was good. That was good.
Sam Stoll would come out to the Imperial March, the Star Wars song. That was, 'cause he just looks like
man.
he's the bad guy, you know?
Sam
It's like
Stoll.
intimidating. When intimidation
That was one of my favorites. If you guys remember, you think about like marketing things with wrestling.
Yeah.
I would do the thing that the mornings. You remember the morning stroll with Sam Stoll? He would
Yeah.
give jokes with his teammates. That was so good. That's one of my favorite ones. And then the other one that I loved was I mean, this was the best. You know, you talk about like you were talking about that roast last night. Like you got to be able to laugh at yourself. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to necessarily be roasted like Tom Brady was last night, where stuff is like anything goes. Every skeleton in the closet comes out. But the one that I also loved was Illinois did Mean Tweets with Isaiah Martinez. You ever see that one?
Oh, yeah, that was funny.
Oh my gosh, was that fun? Like the one that I remember there was Isaiah Martinez reading like, "How do you beat Isaiah Martinez? Put him in a Penn State singlet," and he laughed. I mean, it was great. It was really funny.
Dang. Well, Shane, we are out of time. I thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. I thought we were only gonna get a half hour with you, but I appreciate you.
No, this was fun, guys. This
Heck
was
yeah.
fun. The studio looks great.
Thank
and
you.
yeah, fun to catch up with you guys, and looking forward to talking to you guys soon. But I always appreciate coming on, and thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Man, we didn't even get to a lot of stuff we thought we were gonna get to, but that's okay. That's what Thursday's show will be for. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast Player. Leave us a review. We archive the show. You can listen to it on there. Of course, we live stream on the Flow Sports app, on YouTube, Facebook, sometimes Twitter when we can find it.
It worked for a minute or two today.
Elon Musk is a worthy adversary in terms of using his platform. And but we'll try to win that and make sure you guys can listen. So with that, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.